Hello, hello, welcome. We'll give everyone a minute to jump in here. Thank you all for joining us today. I'll give folks just a minute more to join our WeSpire Live today. Excited to be here.
Oh, me too.
Well, we are a minute past 12 o'clock, so go ahead and jump in. Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Stevens. I'm head of product here at WeSpire and happy to be joining WeSpire Live today. I have Vanessa Davis here. She's the Senior Manager of Employee Engagement and CSR at Octo, and excited to be talking with her about the power of ERGs and your employees.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me today, Amy. This is such a good kickoff to my day, 9 a.m. where I am here in Arizona.
Excellent, excellent. Please, throughout our session today, if you have questions or any follow-up, please feel free to submit it either in the Q&A or in the chat. We will get time at the end to address all these questions and really want this to be an interactive session. So please submit questions and topics throughout the session as we progress the conversation. So I am going to kick us off. Again, power of ERGs and our employees. As most of you know, the CSR world is quickly expanding and changing. We have so many external, internal challenges, whether it is from the expectations and demands of consumers and your employees. We know that, climate crisis and whether those are, natural disasters that are ever more present, becoming larger, more frequent throughout the year, causing us to need to respond, but also, the political, geopolitical, socioeconomic pressures that we are all feeling and need to respond to. We also know that, the workforce itself is changing. Gen Z is coming out of college with expectations that volunteering is something that you just do. It's not a nice to have. They're expecting these giving programs. Millennials also want to see, change in the world. And as more and more boomers are leaving the workforce, you're definitely seeing this shift. There's also, as most of you know, and probably why you're here today, great pressure around inclusive culture, and whether that's in direct response to George Floyd and the social unrest over the last 2 years, but also really putting a spotlight on what each company needs to do to create that inclusive culture, create more equity, and really make sure that we have diversity, because that is really what drives innovation within an organization, is that diversity of thought, diversity of experiences, diversity of backgrounds, and bringing those all together makes it for a much stronger workforce. As we all know, we've just come out of, or maybe you're still coming out of, 2 years of pandemic and the greatest experiment in remote work, but it's not just remote work anymore, but it's how are you dealing with the challenges of a hybrid workforce, and a lot of the issues of proximity bias versus different work styles and how you present yourself in a remote workforce. If you are able to go into the office, if you're not able to work remotely, what does that mean, and what are those tensions that end up building up within your workforce? And of course, all driving towards workplace equity, because we want everyone to feel, safe and feel like they can bring their whole selves to work and feel comfortable doing so, and finding those connections with their fellow employees. So here at WeSpire, we believe in the evolution of CSR. We've been noticing, for the last 20 years and probably even more before that, CSR was really rooted in transactional transactional philanthropy. And the biggest challenges were, how do you move that money around, and how do you get it to the nonprofits, have transparency? And there was a really big challenge to solve. And we've largely solved it. There's so many more expectations about the immediacy today, and how do you do more complex matching. But as we move into CSR 2.0, as we like to call it, really moving from the direct outputs of dollars and hours and participants into that impact approach. And what is that impact that you're having on our communities, and how do you involve those communities more in the work that we're doing? You're also seeing much more continuous engagement throughout the year, and more creative ways of making sure that you are having those measurable and social outcomes that you're looking for. And that then brings us to ESG. We've all heard of ESG. It's definitely cropping up more and more in mainstream media, potentially started, really out of the financial sector of a way to look at risk in investments, but really now encompassing a strategic imperative for all businesses, and bringing together the environmental side, the social side, and the governance side. And we're seeing, some of our, top-notch, best-in-class customers are really leading the way in this, but also in some ways ahead of their time. Because as we look to this, how do you bring together these programs and engage your employees and provide one place for them to find all the information around all of your ESG programs? And now my slides are frozen. So, here at WeSpire, we have employee impact programs that drive business results. We have a library of over 350 campaigns within our campaign library around sustainability, inclusive culture, well-being, and social impact. And we really believe in the power of bringing these programs together is really transformational. You can do environmental justice, bringing together the social impact and the sustainability. Mental health covers both inclusive culture and well-being. We see so much that our employee resource groups really do cover all of these different areas in all of the areas that your employees are most passionate about, and giving them a way to connect to what you're doing and your own mission and creating purpose. So just as an example, we've seen that you can really drive ESG impact for the E, the S, and the G with your ERGs. And with WeSpire, we've actually seen a 3 times growth in employees participating in their ERGs. And that's, not just signing up, but participating in events, participating in, idea boards, participating in giving activities, really being involved with those ERGs, and really feeling connected to the company and the company purpose. And so that's really what we're driving at today, is how do you work with your ERGs to drive your diversity goals as well as your ESG CSR goals, and really drive engagement across your organization. So as we look at this, we have a number of different ways that we can engage employees through ERGs. And, Vanessa, feel free to pipe in at any point with these as well, because I know you've leveraged a number of these throughout the WeSpire platform. But, we have idea boards, and this is a way that employees can nominate ideas or provide ideas, and then they vote on what those, how they like those ideas. And we've seen customers use their ERGs to focus the idea board around nominating charities or vote on partners, how they want to get involved, and really using idea boards to drive that engagement and create those discussions, and then make decisions around what is most valuable to the employees.
That's right. I would share an example too. I was thinking we've got one live, and I'm looking right now, and we do within our JEDI ERG, which is our Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion group. We've got an idea board that's asking for engagement ideas, so we're pulsing our employees, not just the leadership within the ERG that's driving these things and putting the things on the platform, but we're asking employees for ideas. What should we do within this group to engage the workforce to really make an impact against our goals in this area? Looking at some of the suggestions right now, a Jedi book club, disability awareness event in March or October, an emotional intelligence workshop, an unconscious bias workshop. These are all ideas that our employees are submitting. And, that in another sense also helps us get closer to a yes for actually putting these things on, because it all came from employee input, which all of these ideas, essentially, if you're not a WeSpire user already, they get posted to a really nice looking idea board where employees can vote on the ideas. So, we see which ideas rise to the top, and then our ERG leaders talk amongst themselves during their planning meetings to, figure out what they need to do to put these in action. So sharing one example there. We love it.
And Vanessa, just to dive a little bit more into that, it sounds like you've got some great ideas there. And I could imagine being an ERG leader and saying, oh, all of these are great ideas. How do you help them prioritize and figure out what they can take on first? Because it would be hard to take on all of them. It's a volunteer role usually within an ERG leader. So especially with you helping to support them, how do you guide them in figuring out what projects to take on and which ones to say, okay, well, maybe we'll do this later?
Yeah, that's always the big question when it comes to ERG work. And what we've done at Octo is we've created a mechanism that is a charter for each ERG. So we're acting intentionally in the things that we're pursuing within our ERGs by choosing goals. So we solicit feedback from employees to develop our goals. And there are just 3 goals that each ERG has. And we typically have anywhere from like 3 to 6 leaders within each group. Aim is for 6, because then you can have 2 co-leads for each goal. And that has a team of people that stay focused. And so when we get ideas, we see not only what rises to the top, but what fits within those goal areas. And those goal areas, by the way, are in alignment with our CSR strategy writ large, which is going to look different depending on your organization. At Octo, for us, that's serving vulnerable populations while advancing food security, technology education, and health outcomes. So you can see, we've got a nice broad strategy, but you can go deep if your strategy is more narrow as well. So lots of ways to cut this.
Awesome. And then as we dive into events, whether you're doing lunch and learns to really educate your employees around your ERG, theme or affinity, or you're doing volunteer opportunities with our partner organizations, really using events to drive that engagement and bring people together, both, remotely, virtually through, you can do it through Zoom or whatever mechanism you have to, do those sort of remote lunch and learns, or doing, just signups and dealing with all the registration details, waivers, logistics of doing a volunteer event and tracking the signups and the engagement then of that event to really get your employees involved. Do you have an example of doing this, Vanessa?
Yeah. One comes to mind from another one of our ERGs. That's our military veterans ERG. For each of our ERGs, in fact, the first example I'll share is relevant to all of them. And it's an example of how we've done our launch events. We just started launching ERGs earlier this year, thanks to having the feature accessible on WeSpire, and it's really helped skyrocket our CSR engagement writ large. So thank you for that. But the event that we do for launch is basically trivia for good. We bring on our ERG leads, which I'll talk about a little bit later, how we go about identifying those folks. And they talk to our employees. So they're invited to this virtual event. It's 30 minutes, quick, easy, usually held around lunchtime. So it's a nice brain break in the middle of the day for employees. So we get good engagement. And we bring on these ERG leads to tell them about, what's the focus of this group? The example I'm giving is military veterans. And we brought on our ERG leads. Many of them are veterans themselves. They share their story, their why they engage, and some of the ideas that, they've talked about amongst themselves, and that kind of primed collecting more ideas from employees, right? And then we show them the group on our WeSpire platform and the opportunities that we've already got for them to engage. And that's 15 minutes. The latter 15 minutes of that is our trivia for good, which is really the carrot that we're dangling in front of employees to say, hey, come do this really fun activity with us in the middle of the day. You'll get to learn a bit about this new employee resource group that we're launching that we'd love for you to engage in. And then, by the way, you're going to get to do this trivia, which is focused on this specific cause or focus, whatever the group is focused on, in this case, military veterans. Top 3 winners we gave award code points to. We've got a rewards and recognition platform, and we gave them donation savings credits on WeSpire. And what that means is we're putting money in their WeSpire bank to give to a charity of their choice. And of course, offering some recommendations around military veterans focused charities that we like to support as well, which we often see them donate to, or maybe they've got one that's near and dear to their heart. So employee choice has been a big way to keep employees engaged. So that's another thing I would add. Related to that, we had such success with this trivia activity, which you can literally just create on Kahoot. We love, all these different IT solutions, and a lot of them out there, you can create a free Kahoot account, create these engaging questions. People just kind of join from their phone or another web browser. And then we did this again, essentially, because it was so successful that first time around. But the second time around with our military veterans ERG, we invited the CEO, Pete Scott, of Fields for Valor Farms, which is one of our CSR partners that founded a farm. He's a veteran, and he founded a farm in Maryland, in Brandywine, Maryland, that is serving free CSA boxes to local veterans in need in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. We brought him on to tell his story, to talk about what he's doing with the farm, and to promote an in-person volunteer activity that would happen like a week later. And then we did another round of trivia for good, focused on, some of the issues that are facing veterans that are in need, the veterans that his organization is serving. And that helped build more signups for that in-person volunteer activity. And we had a great time with that one as well. So it's been hugely helpful for me to have these tools, and the ERGs has helped me to empower others across the company, because I'm on an HR team, but my scope is really to oversee all of our engagement in CSR. And it's only me and another half-time employee that do that, which I often hear is similar across this work that we do. Across all industries, in fact. So it's helpful to be able to empower these employees to lead these things, because I can only do so much. And I feel like we've been able to do even more this year than we did last year, because of enabling these ERGs and empowering other people across the organization to share the work. And I truly believe in the power of we. So thank you for the events. We've already kicked off, and I have people asking about when we're going back to the farm. I've had other employees that have reached out from other states, because we're mostly remote, and we've got employees in every US state, and they're asking, can we do something like this at a local farm in my area? So you'll see, if you use these tools and you engage your employees, it's gonna unleash, a lot of opportunity for good. And then I get to be air traffic control.
That's really powerful, being able to empower all of the ERG leads to help you create the content and create the engagement activities that are really going to drive, your employees to come back and want to be involved and really connect both with that ERG and with your mission. So I think that's really fantastic. So just to kind of move along here, we have campaigns as well. So that's, really looking at how do you educate employees around, the ERG theme. We've got Heritage Months where you can learn about what's the history of this? Why do we celebrate it? Or, what are some of the practices of that culture that we're looking at? And then always provide them with ways to take action. And sometimes those are giving activities. Sometimes those are, petitions. Sometimes those are going and visiting restaurants by that heritage and that culture. But why don't you tell me a little bit about some of the campaigns that you guys have run?
Yeah, and this, to be honest, is one of my favorite parts of WeSpire. As you know, we've had conversations. My background is in sustainability, and I am a big believer in behavior change. We can't really make a big impact unless we're changing behaviors. And a lot of that involves educating people and showing them the way. And the action campaigns that we have available to us on WeSpire are really powerful, and they're customizable. So, you've got a lot of things that are on the shelf that match with, the various heritage days across the calendar. We were just able to celebrate 𝙒𝙬𝙬 with our employees in an in-person activity that was promoted through our 𝙒𝙚𝙬𝙬 ERG, as well as some actions in an action campaign on our WeSpire platform, which we call the Octo Impact Hub. So it's really great. And we're already seeing our ERG leadership teams for each of these groups kind of adopt those calendars. And that's what keeps them focused throughout the year, so they have day jobs, right? They're doing other things full time for typically our clients, which are the federal government, so they've got their hands full. So it's nice to be able to have resources like a calendar of upcoming heritage dates that align with your 𝙒𝙬𝙬 initiatives. Our veterans ERG also has some calendar dates that they're following. Same thing with our sustainability champions ERG. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of good resources out there. So I've made it my job to help find those resources, get them in the hands of the ERG leaders so that they can focus on actually putting together some really impactful, intentional employee engagement activities and not have to research all these things. So, it's helped me to help them, and then we all win, essentially.
Wonderful. And, as you mentioned a little bit with the idea boards, driving giving through your ERG, and they not only have better insights into the partner organizations, but really to galvanize your employees to get around a giving campaign, drive, whether it's Pride Month or Black History Month or whatever it is, really increases those participation rates to the point where we've seen a 6 times increase in participation in giving, especially when you include your donation savings accounts or the personal grants accounts, as we sometimes call them.
Yeah, for sure. And in fact, the ERGs, since we've launched our ERGs, we have nearly doubled our registration rate on our Octo Impact Hub. And I think that's, again, the power of having these leads across your ERGs who are helping to spread the message. So giving, for instance, not just on the platform, but I know WeSpire provides the capacity to do public giving campaigns. And we literally just launched one with our team yesterday. It took us a little while to get it in order, but it was in response to Hurricane Ian. Like you said earlier, we're dealing with climate change and other things, and we need tools to respond to that. And our ERGs didn't come up with that campaign per se. It was our larger CSR committee, but they've been powerful in helping to spread the message already. Last I checked, we'd already raised $600, and I had literally promoted this last night. So, I've already got some employees that are sharing it out on social, and we're matching funds, to 6 different vetted charity organizations that are on the ground. And this is impactful for us because we have a presence. We've got employees that were literally impacted by Hurricane Ian in Florida. And then many more employees who have family, right, and friends who live there. So definitely look at aligning your giving activities, not just, finding the tools that allow you to enable people to give, but aligning them to what people want to see. So having those idea boards, to run through your ERGs, you're collecting that data and make sure you're doing it regularly. That might look like once a year, pulsing, each of your membership list on, what they feel is important, or it might look like more often. It's going to look a little different depending on your organization. But the point is there are so many tools out there. And for us, because we hate platform proliferation, and having to go to 5 different things to accomplish these things. That's why we love WeSpire and our Octo Impact Hub, because it really brings it all together. And we've seen engagement, giving, volunteerism skyrocket since launching the ERGs. I knew this was going to be the case. We've been talking about ERGs since before you guys had this capacity on the tool. So I will always be a fangirl on these things, because it's been such a success for us.
Well, Vanessa, you brought up an interesting point about, communications, and ERGs are such a powerful tool for cross-team collaboration, but then you also have an executive sponsor to help spread the word and really drive that message. So can you talk a little bit about how that's been helpful for, driving that engagement and communicating what your initiatives are?
Right. So that goes back to creating the charter. So for us, we started with one of our ERGs, created the first charter, and that was our Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion ERG. We created it with the other ERGs in mind too, right? We wanted to have a template in a form, because this makes my life easier, to be honest, so we can launch ERGs more easily. So that first charter gave us some information around, what methods of communication the ERG had available, how often the leadership would meet. It also gave information about executive sponsorship. So that's the question you're asking. We intentionally want to have an executive sponsor for each of our employee resource groups, because it helps us achieve that, not only the grassroots support that you're getting from membership and from your ERG leads, but it brings it up to the grass top support, so that you've always got that messaging going out. Bottom line, it comes down to communication. You don't know what you don't know, and your employees aren't going to know about these activities unless they're hearing about them. And the more you can put these things in front of them, the more we've seen participation. So for us, asking an executive sponsor, an executive to sponsor an ERG, we look for where's the passion alignment, right? So we know, for instance, we've got specific C team members that are passionate about veteran support. We align them with our veteran ERG. We've got specific C team members that are passionate about Jedi, that I know this because they've come out and spoken at IT career summits. We've done, in disadvantaged communities, they've shared their stories. So those are the leadership people you want to go to, find that alignment based on their passion. And it makes it that much easier to get a yes. Like, it was a no-brainer when we went to those people, and they don't have a lot of time to engage, right? So we put some parameters in place through our charter for them to be champions when we have opportunities like an all hands meeting. When we've got all of our employees on a virtual meeting, they make the commitment to promote these things during those activities. So people are hearing about it, not just through our WeSpire communications, not just through, postings on Teams and social media, but also from the leadership, and they're engaged. That's another commitment they make, is to make sure that they're active in the things that we're doing as well. So yeah, executive sponsorship is key.
So Vanessa, I'd love to just have you answer a question that came in around how long do you typically expect an executive sponsor to remain in the role as a sponsor?
Oh, good question. So like I said, we've just created our ERGs. So when we selected our different ERG leads, we kind of leaned, just like I said, with the executive sponsors, we leaned on where people were passionate, because we knew, they'd want to help the cause. And then we leaned on people who we knew would have capacity to build these things. We've decided that it's a 1-year term this first time around, and what we're planning on doing is having an election voting process moving forward for the ERG leads. On the executive sponsorship, it's a great question, and it's one I honestly haven't thought of. I'll share that with you all, because in my mind, these execs are so passionate about these causes. I don't see them backing away from executive sponsorship. But if and when that does happen, we just go through that same process. Who else on the team is ready to pick up the torch and be a champion? Because that's what these executive sponsors are, is you need someone who's really going to stand behind you when it comes to, needing budget resources, when it comes to putting the word out to the right groups, and it needs to be authentic. So that's why, I'm really leaning into the making sure it's aligned to their passion area.
And I think the other part of that you're also describing around the capacity is a really important one, because we all know that, work has its phases, or life has its phases, things come up. And so when it comes time that whether it's an executive sponsor or an ERG lead is not able to perform in the role anymore because they don't have the capacity, having some of those term limits in place can help to drive those. And then also making sure that you have, those role descriptions ahead of time to say, hey, this is really what we're expecting from you as part of our charter. And if you can't, then, maybe we need to make room for someone else to come in, or, tap someone as a co-chair, a co-executive sponsor that can help balance the load as well. We've seen that.
Exactly. And I see that as part of my role, right? Is, like I said, air traffic control. When you see someone, maybe an ERG has left the organization, and these things happen too, and that can happen during term limits. You've got to, as the leadership, as someone who's heading ERGs and kind of the program of it all, you need to be able to help fill those roles. So another great reason to have ERGs, because it will soon become clear to you, based on the membership and engagement, who might be the next leader for your ERG. It'll become clear to you. You'll see people engage. You'll see people ask, how can I help get more involved in this initiative?
And I think that's, one of the things that we saw, if I bring back up the slides, once you get these folks engaged, and, the ERG leaders, almost fighting for, that role because of the, leadership and development opportunities, the chances to drive leadership skills and development, to create those cross-team partnerships and get, the visibility with executives that you wouldn't otherwise. So it really can help your talent pipeline there. And they become some of the biggest champions for your brand internally and externally as well. Carrying the message and saying, hey, Octo is really committed to DE&I, or to inclusion, or to making sure that we all have a voice, we all have a space. And that's so important for then recruitment as well, and how ERGs really are a major recruitment tool, but can also be a good input into those as well. And I think, we were talking earlier about how you've had some inputs from listening to your ERGs, and to how that's helped you with your diversity and hiring processes.
Yeah, for sure. In fact, we've got one tag that we were able to create within our recruiting department, so that when one of our CSR partners is called Hope Project DC, and they're an IT training program that's affiliated with the Black Data Professionals Association that's been around for like over 45 years, helping to drive IT training for Black data professionals. And what we were able to do with recruiting is to create a tag, so that when someone applies, if they are affiliated with the Hope Project, those resumes get kind of put to the top for review, because we've got a special partnership with them. So it's looking for opportunities like this that's key to, use your ERGs to weave your partnerships with, your CSR community-based partners in driving impact. How can you partner with them and ideate with your ERG leads to influence, not just policies and programs, but processes that help drive impact for those communities. So that's just one example of how we're doing that. I know our Veterans ERG has also put together a deck that they shared with the recruiting team on best practices for hiring veterans. Because we're really big on that. We're supporting a lot of federal government work, especially in the DoD space. So, it's great to have those team members on because they really understand the mission focus of that work.
And that is really where, the confluence of all of these things coming together is around that innovation and looking at those policies, looking at your processes and figuring out, whether it's from product design to, marketing policies and communications, internal and external, to, these policies around hiring and development. I think that is really the most amazing power that's really transformational across your organization once you start getting your ERGs to really align with your CSR goals as well.
Yeah, and I think you'll find that comes naturally because the types of people that want to help lead these ERGs aren't just looking for visibility, which is important and definitely helps with internal mobility and helping people advance, especially avoiding that proximity bias that you were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
which essentially means, the people who are seen, who are in HQ, are the ones that you see get promoted. Well, this is a way to break out of that, right? These ERG leads come from all over the country for us. So it's another mechanism to help them be seen and advance in their careers here at Octo, not walking out the door to somewhere else. So it becomes a retention tool too. It's been really great. We love it.
Wonderful. So we do have a question around what's the best advice for launching ERGs. We have Brenda is launching her ERGs in January, and I know that is something that you're very passionate about and have just started doing yourself. So I'll let you jump in from here.
Yeah. So this slide just kind of looks at what Octo is, which I kind of touched on already. We're supporting the federal government IT stuff, and you saw a brief glimpse of our ERGs, which we've talked about. But so you want to launch employee resource groups. I was prepared for this question. As you can see, we've come up with 4 simple steps for you to put your best forward. I'm a nerd, so I'm all about, using the letters to remember things. So we've got a BEST acronym for you here. First step is to build consensus, and we'll dig into this a little bit more. I've got a couple more slides that follow. Build consensus around the topics that are most important to your employees. So that's taking that pulse around their passions, right? Engaging your champions. And I've spoken a bit at length about this, finding the people who are passionate about and eager to engage the team. And like I added before, have that capacity too. It's not enough to be a fangirl or a fanboy and, want to do it, but you've got to actually have some time to do it too. That's a place that is an often common area where I see misstep, and we've misstepped ourselves. Maybe someone just overcommitted a little, and those are important conversations that you have to be willing to have in leading these things. The S is share for success. So I'm trying to bring it around full circle. This BEST could really just go in a loop, if you will, but share for success means you're promoting it across all of your availability modalities. So for us, that's newsletter. For us, that's Teams. For us, that's our WeSpire Octo Impact Hub sends out the emails. And then, like we said before, getting those C team members, your executive sponsors, to share things in these larger company meetings as well. And then finally, T, toast to impact. This is important. It's so important to celebrate what your employees were able to help achieve together, because then they'll keep coming back for more. If they don't feel that reciprocal appreciation, they're less likely to sign up, is what we've seen through our data. So we're definitely becoming better and better about sharing success stories. And, that could be just internal for us. We love sharing things internally and externally on social. It's a great way to kind of spread your brand too. And then if you keep going, so build consensus, I we talked a lot about employee passions already in CSR strategy. For us, we came up with our CSR strategy basically by pulsing our employees. So we already looked at employee passions, and then we looked at what our business was doing, which agencies we were working with across the federal government to support their IT needs. And then we looked in the middle, where we could find alignment with employee passions in our CSR strategy. And that's essentially where a lot of our ERGs developed. Employees were passionate about sustainability, addressing climate change, things like that. And obviously it could soon be coming down the pike for us, ESG requirements at the federal level. I, continue to bring these things up to C team members, and they're very supportive of our sustainability work. So that became one of our ERGs, was sustainability champions. And then if you move to the next slide, it'll kind of dig into engaging the champions. So that gets back to that E in the BEST acronym. I think I said before, aim for 3 to 6 employees to co-lead each group. For our success story, that's what's been the sweet spot for us. Like I said, we have a total of 3 goals that we're asking each ERG to build out. And having at least 3 co-leads means each of them can focus on one goal. Preference for us is 6, because then they can tag team, and it just becomes that much easier when, this is on top of your day job. They must be passionate about the cause. They must be eager to engage others, not just make themselves more visible and able to contribute to the regular planning efforts. I think if you find you elevate an ERG lead, you definitely should make sure in your charter there's some language around frequency of attending meetings. Understandable if as an ERG lead you miss a meeting here or there, but if it becomes a recurring thing, then you're just not there to kind of build that support that's needed to engage the team, and it's probably time to find a replacement. So again, that's important for people who find themselves like myself leading these initiatives, kind of being air traffic control. You've got to be willing to have those conversations. Otherwise, it slows down momentum for the group, for engagement. You could see your membership decrease. Luckily, we've only seen ours increase so far this year, knocking on wood. But it's important that you're willing to have those difficult conversations if needed. And then share for success, just showcasing a couple examples of how we do this at Octo, and we found great success. What you see here on the right is essentially just a screen clipping from a SharePoint news post. We've got an employee engagement and CSR page that's part of our internal SharePoint environment, and when we promote ERG things, we put things out there. We also send out Impact Hub broadcast, which is through our WeSpire platform, and that's through email. So, email, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm a big techie person, but other people love getting the emails, so we keep those coming as well. And what's great about WeSpire is you can target by metadata. Makes my life easier. Again, if we've got an in-person activity, which we do in-person activities often, we'll do like a big campaign, like back to school campaign, where we hosted in-person volunteer activities in like 6 different locations around the country. And we were able to send those targeted emails out to only the employees in those locations based on the metadata. And it makes it easy for you. So you don't have to know how to code or anything like that. I work with a lot of people like that, but that's not me. So again, appreciate the technology. And then Orange Scoop is our quarterly newsletter. So we love to promote, you have to know what's coming up. As an ERG lead, you're often planning a couple months in advance. So by the time I'm able to promote our quarterly newsletter, our section of the quarterly newsletter will show kind of the things that we anticipate doing with our employees. Some of them will already have sign-up links. Some of them will just give a little synopsis of, here's what to expect. Here's around when we're going to do it. And then the comes out later through WeSpire and these other channels. But it primes people, and it gives you a chance to put out save the dates and things like that. And then Tuesday chats, all hands meetings, are opportunities where we get our higher level leadership team members to share these opportunities. Oftentimes they'll share about their own experience with the opportunities. Like later today, I will be hosting our 3rd annual virtual Octo Fest event, which isn't necessarily CSR related, but we still, put all of these fun things on our Impact Hub as well on our community channel. And our C team members love this engagement because we encourage everyone to show up in costume. So, when they were talking about it recently during a senior staff meeting, I think it was, they were, thinking about what they were going to be. So I'm really excited to see all the costumes today, and our employees will get to engage with. We're bringing on a magician / mentalist to do some interactive stuff. And then all this month, starting the 1st of October on the Impact Hub, we had promoted idea boards in an unconventional way because that's just how we roll here, and ran these as contests. So we had an idea board for costume contests with different categories, including employees, couples, children, pet costumes. So we've had all these different, entries come in for that, for fall decorations, fall jokes, a number of other areas as well. And during this live event, after we have our little magician entertainment, we'll be featuring all of the contest winners that were chosen by our peers through the voting process on these idea boards. And we're giving them, some award code points and donation credits. And it's just another way to bring people in. And we've seen huge increase in our usership of the platform by doing these things. We also partner with our CTO shop, our Chief Technology Officers team puts on a hackathon every year at Octo. And last year, or it may have been the year before, we added the People's Choice Award for the hackathon. And that's an idea board, essentially a voting board on the Impact Hub that just closed earlier this week. So later this week, we'll be, featuring the winners of our hackathon plus the People's Choice Award. So it's just another way to bring in that employee voice. And I've gone completely off topic. So let's move on. You can see I'm just always so excited about the things that we're doing. And then
that communication point is so important, and making sure that you're sharing it out through many, many channels and getting people to come back and find their way that they want to be communicated to, and then also how they want to get involved.
It really is. It really is. And let your folks know how to customize their notifications if they are able to, because we have some people that don't want to get, all the different things that we send from our Octo Impact Hub. But what we love about the tool is people can modify that. So they're only getting like a weekly digest, for instance, because we have to make things customizable. Employee choice is so important. And we found that in everything we do at CSR at Octo. The T, Toast to Impact, I shared about our time volunteering at Fields for Valor Farms. So you see an example of a social media post where we were there pulling weeds for 5 hours. It was a wonderful time. And I look forward to going back. Who says that? Like, I look forward to pulling weeds for 5 hours again, but I really do. The next one is just an example of internal recognition. So like I said, during our launch events for our ERG, this was a recognition that went out following our Sustainability Champions launch and featuring the 3 winners of our Trivia for Good. And we gave them award code points. They also received donation credits on the WeSpire platform. And then articles and press releases. I love partnering with our communications and marketing team because they love what we do on CSR. I've kind of built them they've got team members that are part of our CSR committee writ large, and they've helped develop these great article campaigns like Meet the Volunteers. Here we've got Maria featured, and she's done so many things with our CSR program. And we've done several other features as well, and then press releases with our CSR partners. But it's all about finding the opportunities to feature your team members and how they're giving back. Because more than ever right now, people are looking for alignment to purpose. That's the number 2 reason I keep reading and research why employees keep quitting their jobs, is they're looking for closer alignment to purpose in the workforce. And frankly, not all jobs do that. I don't know if, accountants feel super aligned with purpose and doing all their spreadsheet work and all that other stuff they have to do. But through programs like this, we can definitely provide opportunities to align with purpose in the workforce. And that's what we'll continue to lean into here, because it's not only helping us to drive social impact, but it's helping us to drive internally continual process improvement by having more, more voice coming in, more stakeholder viewpoints.
That's excellent. And, love these best practices. I think we've got a couple minutes left. We've got a number of questions to get to. I know that you've got some more treasures for us here. So I'm going to leave these up. I think you've spoken to a number of these already, but we're going to dive into some questions. So if members of the audience have additional questions and want to put them into the Q&A right now, we'll start going through these. Can you talk a little bit about your ERG goals and what are some examples?
Oh, you're going to put me on the spot there, huh? I don't have my charters up in front of me, but I'm thinking back to our JEDI ERG, and some of the goals are focused around recruiting. So looking at how can we leverage our recruiting efforts to perhaps recruit at HBCUs, and draw more from that community. And then others are focused on internal diversity, inclusion, and equity efforts within the company. So, how can we look at our policies and procedures and make those more aligned with those goals? And then the third one, I'm fairly certain, is focused on the partnerships. How do we drive impact through our community partnerships? And now, what I'm going to be looking at going into the new year is how can we take that up another notch and look at our relationships within our clients, because we're supporting, like I said, federal government agencies who have critical missions. And where can I have my ERG leads look at, is there alignment between some of our client work and some of the community partnership work? And where can we bring these folks together to drive impact further and faster? So for instance, I think I briefly mentioned our IT Career Summit that we did earlier this year with Hope Project DC. And we brought in a lot of our technologists to share like day in the life of an AI engineer, a project manager, a DevSecOps professional, so on and so forth. How could we potentially lean on, our client relationships and vendor relationships to bring them into, the next iteration of events like that to drive impact? So.
I think that's fantastic. One other question for you is, since we've gone remote, it's been really hard to continue to see engagement with ERGs. What are some ideas you can share about maintaining the connectivity of employees and impact of ERGs in a more remote world? We're doing less potlucks and in-person events. You used to be able to go to the lunchroom and put table tents up. But how do you, put flyers on a bathroom when everyone is at home? Right.
That's why we have a tool like WeSpire, frankly, which has a great mobile app too. So people are seeing what we're doing through these multiple communication modalities that I've mentioned before. So it's really shifting your mindset from, instead of pasting flyers in the bathroom or in the break room, where can I get that message out? Right. And then putting some parameters. And again, this can happen through your ERG charter around requirements. What's expected of your ERGs? How often do you want them to put out new content? So for us, a lot of our ERGs tend to put out new content once a month, but we just ask for like something fresh once a quarter at a minimum. We have enough ERGs that offers a good variety of activities for employees to engage in. And make sure that when you're building campaigns, I would say definitely lean into the remote first side of things. You know, you've got in-person locations, you might have in-person locations and remote. We have that as well. And I'm not even near our HQ. Our HQ is in Reston, Virginia. I'm in Tempe, Arizona, over 2,000 miles away. But even me and our other Arizona colleagues and colleagues around the country feel well connected. And that's because we have opportunities that are similar to the folks in HQ. You know, so we do in-person activities in many different locations around the country where we've got good, you know, numbers of employees, but we also always promote a virtual version of things. So I talked about the back to school drive where we did the in-person activities, and that was basically bringing people into our locations, or in some cases, employees hosted in their own backyards or their garage in different parts of the country. And we shipped them materials, backpacks, and school supplies to pack together. And then those were donated to local Title I schools. Well, I mentioned we have employees in every US state, just about. And so not everyone could get to one of those in-person activities. So we hosted a virtual activity. We shipped them the supplies to their home, and they joined a virtual activity where I kind of led and talked to them about, we did a trivia for good, in fact, during this activity. So they learned a bit about these issues that are facing kids who lived in disadvantaged communities, who attend Title I schools. What are Title I schools? You know, so it was a bit of an education, and that was half of the event. The other half was building the bags together, you know, just talking about each other's experiences, talking about which Title I school they plan to drop their bags off to. So it was a good way to bring the impact in. There's always a way to do things virtually. We even found a way to do a STEAM Expo virtually, which we're going on our third year for now, which engages elementary and middle school kids with our technologists doing STEM experiments online, virtually, led by our technologist. Again, air traffic control, I can't do it all. I certainly am not a technologist. I could take a stab at, you know, running a lot of these STEM engagements myself, but my preference is to engage the experts, so that these kids that we're engaging can see themselves too, you know, in those roles.
And Vanessa, I definitely have to tip my hat to you, because you come up with the most creative experiences and figuring out how to do it virtually and bringing the people together and making sure that it's not just a transactional activity, that they are learning about the issue spaces, understanding why it's important to them or how they connect with it, and then giving back to the community and figuring out in their local area, how do they then make that impact where they are? Because I think that's such an important part of the circle of impact. A next question that we have is, what are some of the ERG metrics or other metrics you get out of WeSpire that you use in your reporting or storytelling or in recruiting?
Great question. So we're getting a lot of metrics, a lot of data on the back end that I'll include in monthly and quarterly metrics reports, which go up to senior leaders. And then we even see them shared during board meetings, which is great because our board members love this stuff too. And you want to continue to put this stuff in front of them. Metrics matter. And you need to measure these things. So we're collecting things like number of employees that have registered for to become a member of a group. We're collecting how many actions are taken in those action campaigns. Some of our data, so we've run some sustainability campaigns where WeSpire has some great sustainability data collecting in the background where they can show, like, based on your employee actions, you've offset this much energy savings or water savings. So it really, ties it back to those visuals for not just us, but our employees even get to see some of this data on the platform as well. And then we're seeing, tracking amounts given, amounts matched, donation savings credits used. volunteer hours, which we just blew through our goal for 2022. So that's exciting. And that's really thanks to having these ERG leads come in and help bring in more people, do more, go faster.
Wonderful. So I think we are almost at time, but one last question for you. Can you talk a little bit more about the incentives that you're using, and particularly about how are you incentivizing your ERG leaders or even membership?
Incentive for ERG leads, I find is often, just making that impact in a cause that they care deeply about. But I also love to recognize them. We carve out a small portion of our CSR engagement budget for recognizing our team members for these contributions. So one way we're recognizing not just the ERG leads, but all of our employees is by giving them donation savings credits when they volunteer, when they hit a number of volunteer hours. So we give $250 once you reach 25 hours logged. And you can earn up to $500 to give to a charity of your choice per year. And then we're matching donations up to $800 a year. We load $200 available each quarter. And then we have, I mentioned AwardCo. It's a rewards and recognition platform that we've invested in at Octo just actually earlier this year. Same time I was launching the ERGs, we were launching this platform. So you can do it. You really can. And having these tools is why we're able to do so much. And I love linking these two platforms together now, because we'll build in like all of these OctoFest contests I talked about with the Halloween contest. They'll get AwardCo points and they'll get donation savings credit. So it gives you more opportunities to recognize, incentivize, reward your employees for doing what you're asking them to, give back to the greater good, serve a greater purpose, otherwise known as 𝙒𝙚𝙎𝙥𝙚 at Octo, which is one of our core values.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much, Vanessa, for all that you are doing and all of the people you're inspiring and all the impact you're having. It is also your birthday, so happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We will be sending out the slides, so you'll get a chance to look at the BE.S.T framework and some of those best practices at the end. And if you have other questions, please go ahead and let us know. And thank you for joining us. And check us out next month for the next WeSpire Live.
Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.